My first love ended up being my brother's simp. We dated for a year. She was amazing, ticking off every box of my dream partner. But suddenly, everything fell apart. All the love was fake. She turned out to be selfish, a gold digger, and even conned my grandma out of her retirement money. I made up my mind. I'm gonna meet her as the wealthy guy I've always been. The night I found out Jessica was my brother Tim's simp, I happened to be hanging out at his place. His phone rang, but he just glanced at the number and ignored it. That same number kept calling relentlessly. Tim seemed to know who it was and blocked it. I couldn't help commenting, "You have a girlfriend now, dude. You gotta be more careful." Tim is my half-brother, but we seem like complete opposites. He's smart, good-looking, outgoing, and successful. Naturally, he's popular with the ladies and often brushes off admirers. Recently, he announced he found his true love, which left his friends heartbroken. I was worried he might be flirting around again. "Don't you trust me?" He shot me a resentful look. That girl used to be Stella's roommate. When I first met Stella, we all went out for dinner once. Out of courtesy, I exchanged contacts with her. Stella is Tim's girlfriend. Later, when I started dating Stella, this girl was supposed to help me out, but she went ballistic. She claimed Stella was the homewrecker, and that she was my true love. I blocked her, but she kept calling me from new numbers. Women can be terrifying, but thank goodness I switched sides. He recalled, looking a bit traumatized. I was surprised, relieved that I didn't have to deal with the woes of being a heartthrob. I heard my brother send a message to his girlfriend, whining, "Babe, Jessica is bothering me again. I'm scared." The familiar name triggered something in me. What a coincidence. Same name and all? I got a bad feeling, which was confirmed the moment I saw Stella's photo. Couldn't believe it. The girl who told me to stay strong and be independent 5 months ago had now turned into this clingy, crazy girl my brother described. Didn't she leave the country? I heard my voice shaking as I asked. Huh? Never heard anything about going abroad. She was fired and Stella found out she was stealing, so they stopped rooming together. Do you know her? So she never left? We broke up because she liked my taken brother? I snatched Tim's phone, ignoring his shock, and called the number back. It only took 2 seconds for her to pick up. "Tim, you finally answered." Her voice was the same flirtatious tone she would use with me. I can't even describe how I felt, angry but also humiliated at being played. Jessica kept going on about how much she missed and loved Tim. "Tim, you know Jessica can do anything for you." I took a moment to collect myself, typed on my own phone, then handed it to a bewildered Tim to respond to her. Even though he didn't understand, he followed my stern look. So there we were, a weird scene in the living room. Me coldly typing instructions for my brother to flirt with my ex. Tim looked like he was living a nightmare, shifting uncomfortably. I then calmly typed another message. Set up a meeting on Friday. By the end of the call, the contrast between Tim's tearful tone and Jessica's joy was stark. Tim hung up, shaking, watching my expression closely. He was more afraid for my mental state than the wrath of his girlfriend. "What's up?" he asked. "Tim, that's my ex, the one who suddenly dumped me." My brother was stunned. When I dated Jessica, he was in Europe for work. By the time he came back, he only saw the aftermath of our breakup, where I wanted nothing to do with relationships anymore. I never imagined that my cherished memories and feelings were just a massive con. If she was acting the whole time, she didn't just fool me. She duped even my grandma. She'd said her mom needed money to pay off gambling debts, so she wanted to study abroad to escape. No matter how much I tried, she refused to stay. Out of pity, I wired her a huge sum, and we broke up. My grandma adored her, too. When she heard about her supposed abroad plans, she secretly went to the bank and transferred a whopping $4,000 of her savings to her. In total, Jessica walked away with over $50,000. To me, Jessica was the love of my life because she was the one and only romantic experience I had in my 26 years. It was short, just a year, but intense and unforgettable. Even Tim recalled how utterly devastated I was back then. Now, I was fueled by more than just heartbreak, revenge. So Tim, Stella, and I sat down to piece together the timeline of events. In the end, My first love turned out to be trash no one wanted at the farmer's market. Stella and Jessica started working at the same company around the same time and, being close in age, became roommates. However, Stella was a senior consultant, and Jessica just a clerk. Stella quickly found their values didn't align. Jessica had a habit of stealing a brand skincare product here, clothes and bags there without asking. She once told Stella how hard it was for women to succeed on their own, suggesting that marrying well was better. She even dragged Stella to hang out with rich kids, becoming notorious in those circles. While Stella couldn't understand but respected her choices, she'd always excuse herself from Jessica's invites, until she caved once. That's when she met Tim. You wouldn't believe, in a crowd of brats, Tim stood out. He had a chariot's charm, which made Jessica assume he was top dog. Stella said. So, Jessica knew Tim saw her as nothing more than a pawn, yet she used it as an excuse to create meeting opportunities. She'd do things like bring him an umbrella on a rainy day even though he drove, or disguise takeout as homemade meals. Behind his back, she posted countless flirty updates on Instagram, making Stella think Tim was a player. But eventually the lovers got their happy ending, clearing up misunderstandings and finally getting together, which drove Jessica insane. She angrily accused Stella of being the third wheel and threw a fit at the house the two shared. No matter how Tim tried to avoid her, it was pointless. Luckily, his company had an overseas opportunity, so I just sent him away. Stella said helplessly. Not too long after, Jessica announced she'd found a new place and moved out, flaunting it. Oh, and she took a bunch of my clothes with her when she left, including a Balenciaga t-shirt that I really liked. I froze for a second and quickly searched my phone. You don't mean this one, do you? Stella glanced at the screen, shocked. That's the one. How did you know? I felt a pit in my stomach. That shirt was our token of love. Despite everything, meeting Jessica brought me a different kind of happiness. It was a midday when I couldn't catch a break, with projects failing and my boss calling me useless. I was walking down the street, clothes soaked in sweat, and barely found some relief under a tree's shade. A gust of wind hit, giving me a brief moment of peace, when suddenly something fell from above, covering my eyes. I grabbed at it in surprise and felt a soft touch. It was the summer 2023 Balenciaga piece, and even now, I remember the fresh floral scent. I'm sorry, that's my shirt, I heard someone from above shout. I looked up into the sunlight and saw a graceful figure leaning out from a third-floor window. I've got pretty good eyesight, so that wind-blown hair, fair skin, and pure features just hit me hard. In that moment, I got why they call certain people the light of your life. Especially when she asked me with worry in her voice if I was hurt. I felt like Cupid finally threw me a bone, and, a bit dazed, I exchanged contacts with her, promising to reach out if I felt unwell. She waved goodbye with a smile. Stella later told me Jessica was actually throwing a tantrum at home at the time, because she was jealous of Stella being better at everything. In a fit of rage, she hurled the shirt out, and I just happened to be the unlucky target. Gotta respect Jessica's acting versatility. But I still wonder, why on earth would someone like Jessica take an interest in me? I'm just average looking, and back then, I probably had the most miserable look plastered on my face. After some digging, I found out that after she added me on social, my account's recent visible posts perfectly showcased me celebrating a freshly paid-off mortgage. I had posted pics of the place and the deed, calling it my new doghouse. The place didn't come cheap, so I guess she pegged me as some rich kid. Little did I know, she'd put on quite the performance to move in with me. Thanks to her efforts, our relationship went smoothly. We went from daily updates and sharing our every move to flirting all the time. At first, she portrayed herself as the daughter of a wealthy family and a senior advisor at a beauty company, making me feel unworthy and hesitant to take things further. So, Jessica decisively switched up her narrative to bridge the gap. One night after work, I invited her out, and as I got near her apartment complex, I heard the sharp sound of a slap. Two women were arguing. A fierce lady having it out with a girl who seemed timid and a bit familiar. It was Jessica. Seeing the older lady raise her hand for another slap, I rushed in to stop her, shielding a sobbing Jessica. "Ma'am, how can you hit someone in public?" I said. The woman, swearing and quick to act. Looked like she'd hit me next. Behind me, Jessica cried out, "Mom, I'll give you the money. Don't trouble him." The older woman stopped, warned Jessica a few more times, spat in my direction, picked up her bag, and walked away. Jessica collapsed into my arms, crying hard, and muttered, "I'm sorry, George. I lied to you." She confessed she had made up her family story. "I didn't want to show you such a pathetic side of me, but I can't keep lying to you. I really like you and want to be my true self around you." Her words triggered my protective instincts, and just like that, we were official. But the truth was, she was the one pressuring her parents. Stella had overheard her making harsh demands for money over the phone, only to turn around and splurge on luxury goods. As for that older woman, she probably was just an actress hired by Jessica, because I'd met her real mom once when she brought her something at work, a timid, small, malnourished-looking lady. That's some nerve, paying for a staging like that. I cradled my head, feeling dizzy. Reflecting on my time with Jessica, if it weren't for rose-tinted glasses, it'd be one big gaslight. Jessica claimed she wanted to change living arrangements to avoid her so-called family's disturbances. So I offered for her to move in with me. Initially, she was sweet and flattering, effortlessly persuading me to do lots for her and sharing her dreams of a future together, from marriage and kids to smaller, intimate life details. Her need for control also grew. I had to hand over my entire paycheck, getting only $200 on a food card since she thought I'd get up to no good with money. She never paid back the money when we split. Social activities were a no-go unless I video called her to greet everyone. If there were lots of other women, I had to keep her connected on Bluetooth. I even had to sync my chat history to her phone and debrief her on every conversation when I got home. Despite feeling suffocated, I, a hopeless romantic, kept believing that if I gave her enough security, she'd trust my love. So I, a meat-loving guy, cut down to just congee and greens to manage our food budget. Clocking out of work, I'd rush home quicker than clocking in every morning. My biggest joy was scavenging her leftovers because I wouldn't let her go without. Raw fish, organic salads, cherries, durian, didn't matter if I liked them or not. Hunger dictated. Over time, Jessica's grip eased, and I happily thought my efforts paid off. I pampered her even more, fantasizing about proposing on our first anniversary because, damn it, I truly loved her. Just as I was all fired up planning a surprise for our anniversary, Jessica dropped the breakup bomb on me. Looking back, it happened right when Tim was overseas, landing a big deal and getting promoted to general manager, riding high on that success wave. He got called back to run the company's new domestic ventures. Such a promising prospect had Jessica scheming again. After all, she had gotten a bad rep among the rich kids crowd, and my brother was clearly her best option. Because I was totally into her, she felt all confident and was itching to ditch me and go fawn over him. On the day we broke up, she was all tears and drama, saying her mom was pressuring her and she couldn't take the harassment, deciding to grab an overseas opportunity in Japan from her company. She said she didn't want to burden me and didn't want me to see her family's embarrassing situation. Even though she didn't want to leave, she chose to break up with me. She said if I grew strong while she was away, we'd definitely reunite. Even though I begged, cried, and even offered all my savings to help with her family's issues, she refused to stay. At the end, she handed me our symbolic t-shirt and walked away for good. "Don't contact me, George," she said. "It's torment for both of us. Please don't make me sad." I was left, hugging that shirt and softly crying, while Jessica had managed a double hit on me, becoming both a dream girl and a heartbreak. I kept worrying about her, so whenever I thought of her, I'd send money to her account, hoping to look after her in my own way. Though I wasn't the only one affected. My grandma was upset too. Even though she met Jessica just once, her kindness and charm won her over. She always reminded me to treat Jessica well because they both cared for each other. My brother just sneered. "The old lady loves her jewelry. Don't tell me Jessica thought her glass bangle was priceless jade." No wonder Jessica made a point to say goodbye to Grandma. She was eyeing some breakup cash. Thinking about how long Grandma was bummed and even secretly sent Jessica money made my blood boil. If it was just me being fooled, I might have swallowed my pride and called myself dumb. After all, upsetting me is like punching cotton. But tricking an old lady turned the cotton to steel. I've never been that sharp, but suddenly felt super focused. This betrayal would not go unpunished, even if it took me forever. Friday rolled around, and Tim was all dolled up, waiting impatiently for Jessica at our planned restaurant. As a crucial part of the plan, Tim played the temptation card beautifully. Right on schedule, Jessica waltzed in, rocking that naive look she always wore. Seeing her all smiles stirred up all kinds of feelings in me, but any old affection was wiped out by anger. After calming myself, I noticed her hand subtly grazing Tim, full of flirtation. Just as Tim seemed ready to cave, I knew it was my cue. Straightening my new Armani suit, I casually strolled past them. Tim looked my way like he'd found a savior, jumping into his role. George, what a surprise. No wonder this guy gets promoted so fast. He's such a suck-up. Even with my back turned to Jessica, I felt her eyes calculating my outfit's worth. And who's this? Her soft voice asked guests the appraisal was complete. Oh, let me introduce you, Tim chimed in. This is George, son of our overseas partner. Tim's second job, baiting the hook. I turned around, catching Jessica's mask completely off guard. Her expression was something else, mostly shock and guilt. But before she could react, I jumped in. Jessica, is it really you? When did you get back to the country? Jessica stammered, which was a rare sight. George, what are you doing here? Tim, playing his part, acted all shocked. George, you guys know each other? Since when did Jessica go abroad? I had no clue. He laid heavy emphasis on the abroad. Watching her squirm had me smirking inside, though outwardly, I seemed understanding. It's a long story. I was sent by my folks to check out the company here undercover and also to gain experience. That's how I met Jessica, but we broke up for reasons I regret deeply. I tried to appear sincere. Jessica is manipulative but not dumb. Suspicion crossed her face quickly. George, how does your family have a company abroad? I've met your grandma. I put on an apologetic face. Sorry for the deception, Jessica. That wasn't my grandma, just someone my parents hired to test you. You know how suspicious families like mine can be, slow to accept outsiders. Please forgive me and give my apologies to the lady who acted as my grandma. But, having taken in too many of those rich family dramas, Jessica was clearly buying my story, forgetting where the tactic came from. They initially thought you were just another one of those women after me. I paused dramatically. Jessica swallowed nervously. But when you broke up with me, they realized you're a person with pride and principles, so they absolutely support us now. Jessica, I've been waiting for you all along. Hearing that, she lit up, reaching for my arm. But, what were you and Tim doing here? Tim was about to speak when Jessica cut in. Nothing much. Mister. Tim is just a friend I haven't seen in ages. We were just catching up. She shot a pleading look at Tim, and he reluctantly nodded, backing up her story. Since George and I are mending things, maybe Mr. Tim can give us some time to ourselves? Let's get together another time, and you can bring your girlfriend Stella. I'd love to see her again. Smart move, putting herself back as my girlfriend and distancing herself from Tim. After Tim left, I sat down with Jessica, eager to pry into my life. Gotta give it to Jessica. She's kinda infamous in the rich kid circle. Tim and his buddies, the 3 ABC heirs, got a rundown of my rough relationship story. Everyone was pretty riled up, schooling me on all the basics a rich kid should know and showing full support and gratitude for my move to clean house. These guys, man, they've got a strong sense of justice. They bankrolled all my outings and offered connections, making sure I didn't have to worry about a thing. Even though Jessica was a bit skeptical about my identity, after a couple of weeks of prying and cross-checking, she's about 90% convinced. In fact, she even posted on Instagram to celebrate our reunion. A picture of the sky. I once told her that the sky I looked up at when we first met seemed extra beautiful. The caption read, "You like the sky? And I love you." She told me how, even after moving to Japan, she couldn't forget our time together, so she sneaked back to the country. She hadn't planned on bothering George, but fate brought us back together, much to her tearful dismay. While she was gazing at me all lovingly, I was busy trying to yank my hand out of hers. When did she get so strong? My hand was turning blue. By the way, George, I just got back. Is it cool if I crash at your place for a bit? She asked, batting her eyes like she was auditioning for a rom-com. Sure thing. I agreed, not 'cause I had feelings or anything, but 'cause I knew she was gonna ask and had prepped for it. Thing is, there's some issue with my house, and I'm traveling a lot for work. So, I told her I'd have a friend find her a place near her office, just for the month, and then she could come back to my place. A young master, who always helps his family with rent stuff, had loads of oddly convenient listings. Thanks to him, I found Jessica a perfect setup. One roommate into hardcore rock, and the other could moonlight as a pro thief. Jessica wasn't used to this kind of thing. I got a call that very night from her, crying her eyes out. I let her vent until she needed a breather and then acted all concerned. Sorry, Jessica. I didn't know things would go so south, but young Master A is my family's key partner in S-City this time around. As our family's future daughter-in-law, you're representing us. If we offend him, it'll be tough on my parents later. I paused, pretending to be in a bind. Silence on her end. Something must have hit the mark. After a while, she spoke. If it's about uncle and auntie, then fine, I don't mind putting up with it. Just promise you'll come to get me in a month. Now that's what I call a trooper. I assured her with suppressed laughter. Of course, you've got this. As a treat, how about I take you to a friend's party in a couple of days? The party was young Master B's idea, and it was to give Jessica a little shot of adrenaline. When Jessica walked in with me, grinning like she'd won the lottery, we bumped into Tim and the stunning Stella. Compared to Jessica's more classic look, Stella, with her bold beauty, was the life of the party. I felt Jessica's grip tighten on my arm. Stella pretended to just notice Jessica, saying, "Jessica, you here too?" Jessica gave me a glance, maybe recalling Tim's act as my lackey, then smiled at Stella. "Oh, hey Stella, I'm here with my boyfriend. I hear he's been doing business with yours a lot lately." Tim joined in, extending a hand to me with a smile. "George, long time no see," but I barely acknowledged him, showing more interest in Stella. "Tim, who's this lovely lady?" and offered my hand to her. Jessica's intuition was on overdrive, pulling me back a couple of steps and shaking Stella's hand first. "George, Stella's my friend. She and Tim are together and really in love," Jessica said hastily. Stella, sensing Jessica's bait, followed our prepped script with a half smile. "Yep, George. We were even roommates, but we had a fallout, so Jessica moved out in a hurry." Jessica got flustered. That was all a misunderstanding. "It's been ages, Stella. Why hold a grudge?" I could sense Stella was suppressing an eye roll. "Since Jessica insists, I won't bring it up again, but when you left in a rush, did you accidentally take one of my things? For instance, there's a B brand tea I can't find." "You mean that?" "Yeah, I probably grabbed it by accident, but I haven't seen it since. I could check its price and pay you back?" Jessica was forcing a smile, sneaking glances at me, worried I'd remember that tea as a token of affection. But Stella kept her cool, swiftly pulling out a QR code. "No time like the present. $1,320 here should cover it." Doubt Jessica has the cash after losing her job. For the rest of the party, Jessica was a wreck. First, she had to cover up her lie about getting fired, then wallowed over the lost cash, and lastly fretted over my interest in Stella. Stella and Tim, what a duo, black-hearted and all. Stella knew exactly how to play Jessica, echoing my words just enough to get Jessica all worked up. That night, Stella treated us to Jessica's furious 108 message rant in the group chat. She first lashed out at Stella's actions, then warned her to steer clear like she was the main chick. She even threw in a jab about Tim asking her out before, trying to stir things up to show off her allure. Finally, she doubled down, proclaiming she was about to join the ranks of a rich family, so Stella better not stir up trouble. What a spectacularly bizarre take. After this, Jessica became even keener on me, showing signs of her old control freak tendencies. I immediately put on a heartbroken tone. "Jessica, you have to understand. My current situation is unique. If our partners and friends in the industry find out you're controlling me like this, they'll think you're petty and not worth dealing with. Jessica cares a lot about appearances, so when I said that, she immediately backed down, acting like the perfect wife. As long as the budget was sufficient, she'd cook and even do household chores impeccably. Not just that, she also started coming up with some crazy schemes. On her fourth attempt to act drunk and climb into my bed, I had had enough. I wanted to take things slow, but Jessica was obviously more impatient than me. So, I set a time to meet with Jessica to tell her something important. When I got to the restaurant's private room, Jessica was already there, looking excited. I seriously said, "Jessica, I know your family has caused you a lot of trouble, so I want to see your mother again to help you make a clean break." Jessica's smile turned stiff, likely forgetting where she found that woman pretending to be her mom. "George, there's no need to trouble you. I've already cut ties with them. Don't get upset over people who aren't worth it." She comforted me softly, trying to appear like a resilient little flower. "No trouble at all, I've already found the person." Jessica was shocked, and just then, the private room door swung open to reveal the fierce-looking woman from before. Jessica was sweating bullets but still unwilling to break character, tentatively calling out, "Mom." Internally praying the woman was professional enough to remember the script. As if hearing her prayers, the woman came in and slapped her, scolding, "You ungrateful brat. How dare you abandon your family and move abroad?" Then she turned to me, very respectful. "You called me here today for something? Or has Jessica done something again?" Jessica looked at me, stunned, temporarily forgetting the pain of being slapped. I looked at her affectionately and explained, "After you left, I thought they're still your mother and family, so I've taken care of them." Jessica clearly didn't expect my deep sense of loyalty and was truly moved, tears forming in her eyes. I continued, "I brought you here today to inform you that I plan to marry Jessica." The big surprise hit Jessica, almost making her lose control, but she kept her composure, softly calling me, "George?" I reassuringly patted her, "But I found out that your family treated Jessica horribly, and my family can't accept in-laws like them. So I pulled out a bank card. Here's $3 million to buy off your relationship. From now on, you go your way, we'll go ours. Of course, if you don't want to accept, just return the money I've given your family recently to me. After all, I'm still a businessman, not making any unnecessary investments. I'll give you space and time to consider. Let me know when you've made your decision." Then, ignoring Jessica's colorful expressions, I got up and left the room gracefully. Shortly after, I got a call from Jessica. "George, where are you? My mom and I have worked things out, and from now on I only have you as my family. I miss you." I played along and just said I was in a meeting, then hung up. To the person in front of me, I said, "Thank you for your hard work. I'll transfer some extra for your performance. Take a good rest." Jessica's fake mom thanked me. She was a very committed extra actor, and thanks to C's connections, I found her at a historical drama set. Her acting was great, highlighting Jessica's two-faced nature well. Through the hidden camera she had, I clearly saw her in Jessica's showdown. Jessica slapped the woman back, mocking her fake mom for being shameless and greedy, demanding a share of the $3 million by saying, "Without me, you'd never see so much money acting as extras your whole life. Pathetic. Don't be ungrateful." Insulted, the woman was even more into character, fiercely saying, "Dream on. I found out you just want to marry into that family as a young madam, right?" The woman got a little carried away. "Who do you think you are? Even getting someone to pretend to be your mom. If George knew you deceived him, do you think he'd want to marry you?" Jessica shot back, "So what? Didn't you take his money too? We're in this together, are you going to let that money go?" The woman fiercely replied, "An old woman like me, if I return the money, he won't do anything to me. But if you leave George, you'll be nothing. If you want me to keep quiet, wire me 50,000 hush money." Jessica didn't expect to be turned against and was infuriated. 50,000? Have you lost your mind wanting money? I don't care, we can fight to the end. I'm old, but I have tens of thousands of followers online. I'll post all your dirty deeds on the internet and let's see how you live after that. Wow, the woman having so many followers was quite the surprise too. Jessica didn't expect this turn. Her face turned sour, but after a while, she said, "Write everything you said word for word and sign it. I'll wire you the 50,000 this week." After sending the woman away, I looked at the silent middle-aged woman nearby. She was Jessica's real mom, Susan. I didn't bring her here out of any perverse sense of revenge. It was because after Tim looked into it, he told me Jessica's mom had a hard life. Her parents were ordinary migrant workers, moving to the city for Jessica's better education, always trying their best not to let their child suffer. That's how Jessica grew to be so spoiled. When Jessica was in middle school, her dad had an accident and lost the ability to work. The family's income dropped suddenly. Jessica had a big ego by then and couldn't stand the penny-pinching days. So she stole the bank book and ran away. By the time her mom found her, she was working in a bar and had racked up lots of debt. She put on an act, swearing she'd turn over a new leaf. But once her mom brought her back home and cleared her debts, she left again. Jessica dreamed of marrying into money and constantly asked her family for money under the guise of investing in herself. Tim's first encounter with Susan was when she was helping at a food stall, scrubbing dishes and picking up tossed-out plastic bottles. "Auntie, me? I don't know how to start this conversation. It feels heartless to call out a daughter's faults in front of a devoted mother." "I'm sorry," Susan said, sincerely apologizing. Her already frail body seemed even more hunched. "I didn't know she owed you so much money. I'll help pay it back. It's our fault as parents that Jessica turned out this way. I beg you, don't send her to jail." Her expression was sad, yet she seemed to have cried all her tears. "Auntie, I didn't mean it that way," I stammered. "We investigated. Jessica can totally pay it back herself. I won't press charges. You don't have to fret over her. Just please don't spoil her any longer." Watching her leave with gratitude all over her face left me feeling all kinds of mixed emotions. I'm no saint and won't use my hard-earned money to pave someone else's path. Jessica's problems are her own doing. Hopefully, her parents can live a bit easier now. 2 weeks later, the faux mom lady told me she arranged a meeting with Jessica to exchange hush money. During this time, Jessica stayed pretty low-key, probably to avoid unnecessary trouble. I told Tim about the plan, and he was all in, eager to be my driver and relish the drama. Our strategy was to swoop in after she handed over the money to the lady, then watch Jessica's reaction. Just as Jessica handed the card to the lady in the cafe, Tim and I moved in to catch her off guard. But then Jessica spun around with a knowing and mocking smile. "Both of you confronting me together, huh?" Tim and I froze. Jessica coolly stirred her coffee. "What do you two think you're doing? Trying to break me and my mom apart? To be honest, that woman clued me into your plot ages ago. She never learns, does she? But you're disgusting, using such spiteful tactics, making me do your laundry, have me live in a rundown place to humiliate me, and then boast to everyone I was your first love? Your words seemed poison-tipped, making your face contort. Your biggest flaw is fantasizing about being other people's savior and meddling in their business. It's revolting. Sorry, but I won't repay that $500,000. So what if I tricked you? I earned it fair and square. I'm taking your granny's pension to buy myself a nice bag." She cheekily winked. "I've already got a ticket for a flight to City M in 2 hours. You won't see me again. Bye now." She put on her sunglasses and, before leaving, gave Tim a regretful look. "Too bad you and I aren't meant to be. Tim, I really like your face." Tim shuddered. Watching her leave with a bounce in her step, Tim shrugged and said, "Told you people don't change." "Well, no big deal. The money's already in our hands." On the day Susan begged us to give Jessica one last chance, she first repaid all the money. She had a key to Jessica's house because Jessica treated her like a maid and often called her to clean the place. So she easily swapped the bank card. Jessica was too lazy, so she wrote the passwords on the back of each card. By the time she boarded the plane, Stella should have transferred the money out. No worries about her coming back for trouble, given that string of slick insults already admitted her deceit. Picturing her fuming face upon discovering she was duped is pretty satisfying. Sadly, Auntie Susan trusted her daughter so much, yet this is where they ended up. Tim sighed a little. Hadn't she been so indulgent, Jessica might not have turned out this way. Just a classic case of getting what you deserve. Don't you trust my judgment? My brother shot me a resentful glance. I'm just an ordinary person who once dreamed of being some kind of hero meddling in things, which is why I ended up wrapped around her finger. After I got back the money, I couldn't bear to tell Grandma that the sweet girl she adored was a total fraud. I only said those 40 grand were paid back by Jessica, as gratitude for Grandma's kindness, hoping she'd treat herself with it. Grandma seemed momentarily lost, but then excitedly asked if I'd take her to the antiques market to look for a jade bracelet. I laughed. Grandma was the wise one, sincere to people but wouldn't waste her energy on those who weren't worth it. Maybe relationships always require trial and error before finding someone truly compatible. But next time, here's hoping I avoid being a fool for love.